Welcome to NoobAquatics. I am Matthew. Thanks for coming back to our channel. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. All right, and enjoy the video. Today we are talking about Malaysian trumpet snails. Why? Because we have tons of them. Now, Malaysian trumpet snails are considered to be a pest snail. So if you're thinking about getting Malaysian trumpet snails, you may want to consider whether or not you have a way to get rid of them, something to feed them to, or the reason why you're getting them is important. Maybe you're putting them into a pond or something in a area where the temperature stays steady, or you got a heated pond and you want to make sure the soil is always aerated. But let's take a look at what happens when you start out with two Malaysian trumpet snails. Two. And I got these Malaysian trumpet snails by accident. All right. They came in and I didn't really care. I like snails. Even if they are pest snails, they all have benefits in aquariums. All right, so these Malaysian trumpet snails, we do have something that eats them, and they have a great benefit for planted tanks. So let's take a look at what happens when you start out with two. All right, so when you start out with just two Malaysian trumpet snails, this is what happens. So you see all those Malaysian trumpet snails? I'm not done, there's more. And I'm going to keep going. There's rhino. And they just keep going. And this actually is not a lot that you can see, but when we put food in there, they all come up out of the substrate. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of Malaysian trumpet snails in there. They breed really quickly. Now, we don't mind, because in this tank, now that's just an empty shell right there, but in this tank there are at least, was it 8 or 9? Somewhere between 8 to 10 assassin snails in this aquarium. So they're eating them just fine. As you can see here, they start out with the ram's horn snails. Alright, so if you got ram's horn snails and Malaysian trumpet snails, they're going to go for the ram's horn snails first. And then after they run out of ram's horn snails, they go for the Malaysian trumpet snails. Now, why is that a good thing? One, well, your assassin snails, not only are they considered I'm going to put air quotes here, a pest snail, they look prettier. So you'll see the shell. See how it's striped right there? And again, that's an empty shell. You'll see one of them right here. He's underneath the sand. That one's alive. But yeah, so they normally come out at nighttime. So this guy right here at nighttime will come up out of the sand. So yeah, kind of exactly like the saltwater Nassarius snail. I think I'm saying that right. They come out of the sand at nighttime and look for food. So the saltwater snail, as soon as it smells food, it'll come up out of the sand and race around the sand looking for the food and eat food. Well, these look very similar. So if you compare the two side by side, the body shape and everything, and the way they have their mouth, how it comes out, all of that is very similar on these snails here, but these are freshwater. So yeah, so these are Malaysian trumpet snails. Malaysian trumpet snails are a little unique. Why? Because these things, as you'll see here, all right, there's a little bit of an armor right there next to the opening. That makes it harder for certain things to eat them. So small puffers like pea puffers will normally avoid these snails. They can eat them, but a lot of times we've seen that they avoid them. So if you want to put these in your substrate in a pea puffer tank, you may get away with it, you may not. It's an iffy. It's a 75-20% chance. 75% chance they'll get eaten, 25% chance they won't. All right, they're just harder for pea puffers to eat. But yeah, so we use them and we like them. And remember, we started out with two. Those two turned into thousands. And if you look, we even put some in here. So you see them all in there? All right. So yeah, so we keep Malaysian trumpet snails, and we love Malaysian trumpet snails. They're good for planted aquariums, especially when you have plants that have roots in the substrate. They're good for keeping the air bubbles out of the substrate as well. So as they burrow into the substrate, those gases that can be created under sand can actually be released by these Malaysian trumpet snails burrowing into the sand. So that's a good thing. one of the things you'll want to do is that if you want to add these to your aquarium, there's two things to consider. Like I said in the beginning, they are considered pest snails because of how fast they breed. They're going to breed as fast as there is food. So what does that mean? So that means if you're overfeeding your aquarium, you're going to know, because there you're going to see thousands of Malaysian trumpet snails show up. So what can you do? You can wait till you have a high population of Malaysian trumpet snails, and then later add in the assassin snails. And when you add in the assassin snails, the assassin snails will keep the population of Malaysian trumpet snails down. Keep in mind, though, that the assassin snails will breed based on the amount of food available as well. So what do you do with the assassin snails? The assassin snails, they can be sold, they can be given away. So if you want to keep a good balance, once you start seeing baby assassin snails, once those show up in your tank, you'll want to take them out when they get to a certain length. I believe it's a ½ inch. I can't remember the exact, but you'll want to take those out and give them away, sell them, do what you can, because if you let your assassin snails overpopulate your tank, then you won't have any Malaysian trumpet snails left. They'll eat the entire population. But so where can you get these? There's many different places you can get them, but they also don't sell them at local pet stores. So eBay is a good place to get them. Aquabid's a good place to get them, that type of thing. You want to make sure that if you do get Malaysian trumpet snails, the easiest way to culture your own colony is to put them into a separate breeding aquarium, adding in food every single day until you start seeing the population increase. And then after a certain amount of days, so let's just say that most parasites need a fish host within 24 to 30 days or something like that. So after a month, you may be able to start moving in these snails into your aquarium. Because snails can, if your fish do eat snails or anything in your tank eats snails, they can be infected with parasites if they decide to eat the snails. So keeping them isolated for at least a month or so is recommended. Now again, like I said, Malaysian trumpet snails, they are an asset to most aquatic environments. Malaysian trumpet snails, they live to be about 1 year old. They come in many different colors. I've seen gray, I've seen a bluish color, I've seen a dark brown. Doesn't matter what color they are, as long as they are classified as Malaysian trumpet snails and they're not these giant snails, giant ones. I can't remember what they're called, but there's these snails out there, the rabbit snails, I believe. That's right, buddy, rabbit snails. Not those. Those things breed really slowly. So if you put in, 2 rabbit snails and they just happen to be, the right ones, it could be years before you see, baby rabbit snails. But the good thing is that, let's just say you do overfeed, they're going to go through the substrate, eat all the leftover food, and produce waste. Now, if you have plants, that waste is actually used as food for those plants. So they are a high benefit for planted aquariums. If you don't have a planted aquarium, probably not that much of a benefit, except for, reducing the gases in your sands. One other thing to consider is that Malaysian trumpet snails don't always stay in the substrate, and they can actually come up out of the substrate, climb up your filter, and if they're small enough, they could potentially clog your intake of your filter. So keep that in mind. We keep a pre-filter over the intake of ours so that the Malaysian trumpet snails can't get sucked up in there and cause any damage to our filter pumps, which is recommended for most aquariums. They can live in pHs anywhere from, I've seen 6.5 all the way up to 7.8, maybe even higher or lower. But once you get into more acidic, their shells start to degrade, and that's not really good for them. So what is recommended is you want slightly harder water, so not like 400 parts per million or anything like that, but you'll want to have at least enough calcium, magnesium, that type of thing. So if you use RO DI water, then you'll want to make sure you're always adding in the right amount of GH to keep the GH up for their shells, and then of course the KH for the pH to stay stable. But yeah, so you'll want to kind of keep an eye on your water. You don't want to have 2 degrees hardness for GH and 1 for KH. You probably want to have around 6 GH and 3 to 4 KH, somewhere around there. That's That's a good ratio. It doesn't matter on the lighting, but just know that these Malaysian trumpet snails do come out mostly at nighttime. So one of the neat things about Malaysian trumpet snails is that they can reproduce sexually or through a process called pathogenesis. Now I don't need to actually explain that, but just know that they are also known as the live-bearing snails. So just like guppies, you know, the snails, the guppy fry come out alive. So same and similar with the Malaysian trumpet snails. So these things down here. These Malaysian trumpet snails down here, one that's about 10 millimeters in length, all right? That's the only length that it needs to be, is about 10 millimeters. Once it's at 10 millimeters, it can start breeding. And they can lay anywhere from just a few to up to 70, you know, young at a time, which is a lot. So keep that in mind and always have a way to reduce the colony so that you're not overpopulated with snails. Me personally here at NoobAquatics, we like Malaysian trumpet snails because of what they do to the substrate. We like ram's horn snails. We don't care what snail it is. Every snail, in our opinion, because we do have a planted environment, has a benefit for something. They're food for fish because my cichlids like to eat them. They're food for our puffers. It doesn't matter. They're a benefit to the entire aquatic environment for us. So if you're looking to get some Malaysian trumpet snails, make sure you check this. Make sure you check your need and that you know what you're getting into. Well, thanks so much for coming to NoobAquatics. You have a wonderful day. And again, this is Malaysian trumpet snail. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and you have a wonderful day.